Well, welcome everyone. We are so glad to have you with us here today for this special LinkedIn webinar. My name is Lakeisha Matthews, and I am the director of the Career and Internship Center at the University of Baltimore. We are happy to present you with this information today. We have a special guest that I will introduce in just a moment, but first I'd like you to know that this is a joint collaboration between the UB Career and Internship Center, which serves the College of Arts and Sciences, the College of Public Affairs, and the Merrick School of Business, and the Law School Career Development Office. We just want to say to everyone, we hope you're safe and we hope you are well as we all social distance during this pandemic. We are happy that we were able to bring this workshop to you via Zoom. We actually had this workshop planned on campus back in March, and we were grateful that our special host today, our special presenter today, agreed to conduct this over Zoom. And during this time, there's no better thing than to learn how to network online and how to brand and present yourself online. I'm actually going to ask my colleague, the director of the Law Career Development Center, Alyssa Fayo, right now to have a few words, and then we will introduce our special guest.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Fayo. I'm the Assistant Dean of the Law Career Development Office at the University of Baltimore School of Law. Just want to welcome everyone to this event. This is truly a university-wide effort to get you all networking using LinkedIn, which is particularly important at this time when we were all at home and not able to connect and network in person. So Paula, I want to thank you for joining us and thank all of our participants. We have current students and alumni here today, and we hope everyone can take advantage of this program. And thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Alyssa. Just a few housekeeping tips, everyone. We do want you to know that there are over 100 participants from the UB community registered. Already there are about 38 of you on the line. We want you to know that we will have a Q&A at the end of the session, and Paula will answer your questions, but throughout the session, feel free to type them into the chat. Alyssa and I are going to keep track of those questions and make sure that you get your answers. And we want to remind you that both career centers, the CPA CAST and MSB Career Center and the Law School Career Center, are all open during the pandemic. So after the session, if you would like someone to work with you on your LinkedIn profile, you can schedule an appointment with a career specialist in one of our offices. So at this time, I'm going to introduce our speaker, and then we're going to turn it over to her for the presentation. I am so happy because today's speaker is actually a great colleague and friend of mine that I've known for quite some time. And her name is Paula Brand, and she's also well known throughout the country for helping people with their LinkedIn profiles. So combining her expertise in career counseling, human resources, workforce development, and training facilitation, Paula Brand has inspired thousands of professionals to take charge of their careers. She speaks to groups and provides individual career coaching on using LinkedIn effectively, directing a successful career and managing career transitions. Organizational clients include the World Bank, NIH, Johns Hopkins University, and the Penn Wharton Public Policy Initiative. Paula is involved in professional associations and is a past president of the Maryland Career Development Association. In 2014, she received the MCDA Outstanding Career Practitioner Award and the Professional Contributions Award from the Middle Atlantic Career Counseling Association. Her education includes a master's degree in applied psychology from the University of Baltimore, a bachelor's degree from UNC Greensboro, and 3 industry certifications, including Global Career Development Facilitator, Certified Professional Resume Writer, and Job and Career Transition Coach. Paula, I am so happy to have you here today to talk to our students in the UB community. You've been a great colleague and friend since our MCDA days, and at this time, I'm going to turn it all over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Lakeisha, for that lovely introduction. And yeah, we go way back. So Lakeisha is also a past president of Maryland Career Development Association. And we were kind of doing that similar time frames. I really appreciate you having me here today. I'm excited to jump in and talk about LinkedIn because really it's hard to get me to stop talking about LinkedIn once you get me started. But I do just want to thank everyone who's here today. I know we have alumni and undergraduates, people from graduate programs, the law school, maybe even some faculty and staff. So thank you all for being here today. And I look forward to engaging with you for the next hour or a little bit, hour and 50 minutes. I'm going to turn off my video as I'm going through the slides, but I'll bring it back on when we do the Q&A towards the end. And feel free to ask questions throughout, but we will try to keep on track. And if it seems like we're getting a little too off track, we will pick it back up and save most of the questions for the end. So without further ado, I'm going to turn off my video and then start going through the presentation itself. So we're going to talk about branding yourself on LinkedIn, obviously, today, and there's a few different reasons to do that. Here are some of the things we're going to talk about today. In a minute, I'm going to talk about why you really need to be on LinkedIn. And once we get through that, I will talk about really how to make changes to your profile that are specific to branding. And a lot of that has to do with adding images and visual stimuli to the to your LinkedIn profile, because it's very text heavy, the website itself. So we'll go through section by section, and you'll see the different places where you can brand yourself. There's some slides will be words like this, and other slides I have screenshots. In some cases, I've drawn boxes or arrows to point you to what I want you to look at on the slide itself. But I find it's good to talk about it and then show you a visual image. I will say that LinkedIn changes all the time, and with 600 million people on it, when they roll changes out, they don't usually roll it out all at once. So my screenshots might look slightly different than yours, depending on how long you've been on LinkedIn and things like that. But if you just look for the keywords, and I'll mention those as we go through it, you should be able to figure it out, even if your view looks slightly different. And the first couple slides I have are really just to answer the why should you be on LinkedIn. And really, these are, I'm not going to read all the statistics, but I mean, the main points here are, first of all, how many people are on LinkedIn. And this is worldwide. So certainly the US uses LinkedIn more than most other countries, and Canada is also a heavy user. And some countries like Germany have competitors that are sometimes more attractive than LinkedIn. And in Japan, LinkedIn isn't as widely used. But for the most part, really, LinkedIn is the major social media platform for professional purposes worldwide, hands down, across all industries. So I think it's very important to be there, one, to have a presence, but also to increase your network and try to leverage all of those people on LinkedIn to connections that might be able to help you or people that you might be able to help. And if you're trying to be found on LinkedIn, then you'll know that these are basically two different people who are online a lot. Susan Joyce is behind jobhunt.org, and she recently had this quote that over 90% of recruiters search LinkedIn. The other quote is from 2017, but really I've been tracking this number for a while, since probably the past 10 years, and it only goes up. So it's never really gone down. So if you want to be found, you do need to create not just a profile, but a good profile. And that doesn't, I would have to say a profile is kind of like a resume. It's a work in progress. It's never going to be completely finished. Every 6 months, you're probably going to change something, but the foundational aspects shouldn't have to change too much once you get a good profile as a foundation. So the first slide here I want to just show you is how to actually make a change to your profile. And I realize that we all like to multitask, so you might be trying to play around with it right now. That's fine with me. You know, sometimes people learn better by actually doing, but this will be recorded, so you will be able to do that later as well if you want to just focus on the presentation itself right now. So this is what, when you look at the main bar, the main menu bar, you see this black line at the top, and where it says me, that you click on that, because it always takes you to your home page when you first log on. So you have to click on me and then click on view profile to get to your profile. And then once you're in your profile, you'll see these 3 symbols throughout the profile. The plus sign just allows you to add something. The blue pencil icon allows you to edit that section that you're in. And this symbol, I'll point it out in a time or two in later slides, but this 4 lines, like a square of 4 lines, if you click and hold that, that usually is the symbol that allows you to move things up or down. So that's just some basics in terms of editing when you go to do that. The other thing I want to talk about before you do make a lot of changes, and this is especially true if you're new to LinkedIn and you don't have anything on your profile yet, when you first get on, it is smart to change this one setting. Now, there are a lot of settings in privacy and settings, and I do encourage you to go look at them, because if privacy is your main concern, you can control a lot of it within the section, and you can make it much less scary. I mean, in fact, you can make it so that people have to know your email in order to send you a LinkedIn invitation. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that because it's very limiting, but for someone who is very famous already or needs to limit who is coming, who's sending them invites, you can do that. In this case, what this screenshot is showing you is how to change the setting specifically that notifies your network when you make changes to your profile. So basically, if I made one edit every day for 5 days, LinkedIn would send my network each day when I made a change. It would notify my network. So it might send Lakeisha a message that says, Paula just added a picture, and it might send Alyssa a message that says, Paula just added an education. So you can see where that would get very annoying and overbearing for the system to send those notifications out. But also, you might not be ready. You don't want your network notified quite yet, because you want to get it up to speed a little bit more. So the way you do this is, like the last slide, you go to me, and then you go to settings and privacy. That's step number 1. And then the second step will be to scroll down on the privacy page that you land on and look for this phrase: share job changes, education changes, and work anniversaries from profile. And then 3 would be to change the toggle to yes or no, depending on how you want it. And sharing profile edits is what they used to call it, so you might still see that. So I would either look for sharing profile edits or share job changes as the things to look for in the settings. And if you change that to no, which mine is always set to no, and the downside to that is when I actually do want everyone to know something, I have to remember to go in and say yes, and then make my change, and then go back and put it to no. So that's a good tip, just to avoid over notifying your network when you're in the beginnings of setting up a profile and making lots of changes. Okay, so what makes a great profile? This is general information, I would say. We're going to get a lot more specific, but in general, a great profile, just like a resume, would have no typos. You would add some visual elements, which we're going to focus on a lot today, because there's so much text and words on a LinkedIn profile. It's usually written in the first person, but I would say the one exception to that would be academia, is higher ed, sometimes in the medical field. There's certain industries or executives, like presidents of companies. So there are certain genres and industries where people prefer third person, but for the most part, first person is preferred by recruiters and hiring managers, and will allow people to connect with you more when you write in first person. So it's okay to use I, me, and my in your LinkedIn profile. And I know that that's not true for a resume, but that's where one of the ways that LinkedIn is different than your resume. Your profile should also kind of explain what's your why do you do what you do. By reading the things that you present on your profile, that should become apparent. It's really important to use keywords and keyword phrases, and you'll probably get tired of me saying that by the end of this presentation, but it's so important, and there's so many places where that is a factor. Basically, LinkedIn is just one big database. So when you want to be found, you have to make sure that you use the right keywords that others will search on, and we'll talk more about that. The other thing would be a good picture, and we'll talk in more detail about what makes a good picture. well filled out, meaning that you filled out the basic sections at the very least, your experience, your education. There's so many other sections you can add, like languages and honors and awards, and we'll talk about more about that a little bit later. One final point I want to talk about, what makes a great profile, is the number of connections you have. So if you have just two connections, it's not that it makes your profile bad per se, but people won't take it seriously. If you only have a few connections, people will wonder if you are really serious about being on LinkedIn. And so I think you need at least 50, because that's the magic number for the algorithms to start kicking in. And then once you hit 500, all people will see is 500 plus. You could have 10,000 connections and it will just show 500 plus. So I would say make 500 your ultimate goal. I wouldn't become obsessed about it. And I definitely would not suggest accepting lots of invitations from people you don't know well or you don't trust just to get that number. You definitely want quality connections, quality versus quantity for sure, within the guidelines of getting at least 50 and then shooting towards 500 over years is fine. Okay, now in terms of branding your profile specifically, we're going to talk about the different sections and go through them in more detail. If you see something on this slide that is bolded and capitalized, it's because it's actually a section on the profile, and that's what we're going to go through. We're going to start with the headline, and then I'm going to show you a quick trick about getting a vanity URL. This is a fun, quick thing that you might actually do while we're on the webinar together. And then the other sections will go into more detail. So in terms of your headline, and this, I'll show you a screenshot in a minute if you're wondering what your headline is. It is right underneath your name. It is exactly directly underneath your name. And it provides 120 character of space for you to fill, which is a decent amount, but it's not so much that you can just be too wordy. So you really have to be focused in the words you put there. And this is also the most heavily weighted field on the entire profile for search engine optimization, which I'll refer to as SEO after this slide. If you want to be found, you have to use the type of words that you want to be found for, meaning my profile, my headline, part of it says global career coach. And that is a very intentional word choice or word phrase choice, because if people type in global career coach, I want to come up high in the results. And so I don't use career counselor, I don't use career advisor, and I put the word global to also kind of further differentiate myself. So you have to think about, if I was to be found for what I want to do next, what words would someone search to find me? And I know we have lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds on the webinar, so I have a variety of examples, but think about that for yourself right now. What are the keywords for your industry and for the work that you do? The default of LinkedIn will be to just pull from your current title of your current job, or say you've never worked and you're only a student. It will say something like freshman at University of Baltimore. So let's go a little bit more into the headline. And these are just two examples to show you how you can see the default would be the top one, Liam Monahan, Junior at Temple University, Klein College of Media, and so on. So that's just the default that it pulls up, but you could change it to say creative, organized, and strategic thinking English major at Davidson College. And by the way, there's a fake profile for someone called Zoe Wildcat, and a career counselor at Davidson College created it, and this is that person's headline. So it's not really a person, and they won't connect with you, but there is a woman who runs it and keeps it up to date. The other example would be here, as it was Lakeisha mentioned, I do some consulting at the World Bank, and I've asked a couple of the colleagues there if I can use some of their titles. So director at the World Bank is actually someone's LinkedIn headline, but there's a lot of directors at the World Bank, and there are so many different directors at the World Bank, it would be hard for you to know what this person actually does, as opposed to the one on the bottom of the screen, global sourcing specialist. Well, that tells you she's a recruiter, she's talent management, she's looking for those types of things. It's a little bit more detailed, like these acronyms are really more for someone who would know the bank well. So they may not be necessary, but someone might be searching just for someone who works at IFC, and so that's why she's got that in there. So these are 2 examples. And then you can see on this screenshot, mine is at the bottom in the red box. But I'd like you, if you want to share in the chat box for a moment, feel free to share what your current headline is, or if you don't like your current headline, maybe pick some keywords that you might use for your future headline. So I'll give you a second to do that. And while you do that, I will just mention that for my headline, as I said before, global career coach and consultant, those are very specific words I've chosen to be found. If someone looks for a LinkedIn expert, if someone's looking for a speaker, like Lakeisha was looking for a speaker, and she typed in LinkedIn expert into LinkedIn to find people like me, I want to come up higher in the results. So that's why I've used these keywords in the first line and a half. Now, empowering mid-career to executive women, that's more of a tagline, and it's not keyword rich. So if anything has to go, that would go first. But that's really more for the human reading, not for the search engine reading the words on my profile. So I can actually see the chat box. I was able to figure out how to do that. And so I can see some of these. Director, risk management, enterprise risk, compliance and third-party frameworks, analytics, information risk. So that's someone's headline, and it's good because it's not the standard boilerplate. I can tell it's not a job title. There's a lot of risk in that headline. I see risk 3 times, but that's good. I think that's giving me the impression, probably correctly, that as the director of risk management, you probably are dealing with a lot of risk. Someone said public steward, thinking of changing to Baltimore's public steward. So, Baltimore would be a keyword there. Goal-oriented customer service professional, motivated human services student. So, so the keywords there would be like customer service, motivated. So you can use soft skills, something like motivated or dedicated. Hard skills are probably stronger, but soft skills are okay to use as well. Information system and technology management. That sounds a little bit more like a proper title, although it's also kind of a general industry term. So yeah, so you guys get it. Maxine Rush, I see, wrote college and career planner, and I happen to know Maxine. So I would think about, is it, you could probably add some more details, I'm thinking, for the work that you've done, like assessments for career assessments, maybe job search might be a word that Maxine might add, because as a college and career planner, you're doing some of those other things. You might be running job fairs and so on. So those might be words. I don't know if I would put job fair in my headline if it's something I do once a year, but if it's something, maybe a college has 5 a year, and you want employers who see your headline to think, oh, I want to be at their next career fair, well, then you might put it in your headline to attract attention to that. Okay, so thanks for everyone who joined in. I see one more, and I like that, networking enthusiast, someone has added, an entrepreneur. So those are good. I would have to say entrepreneur is probably not a lot of people on LinkedIn, like hiring managers and recruiters are going to be looking for entrepreneurs to hire, but it's possible. So that might not be as strong a keyword for being found. You might think about if a client, whatever your entrepreneurial work is, Antonio, what word would your clients look for? If they were to hire someone like you as an entrepreneur for what you do, what words would they use? And it might be international relations, but it might not be. Or management. Thanks. Okay, and I see another one, librarian outreach. So yeah, I think that all of you get the point that the keywords are really important in the headline, and I love the ones that you've come up with in your examples. Let's move on in the interest of time to getting a vanity URL. And a vanity URL is basically like a vanity license plate, and that's why I have that picture there. It's basically when everyone gets on LinkedIn first, you get assigned something like mine would be Paula-brand- and then you get a series of letters and numbers, just like a license plate is a series of letters and numbers that you didn't choose. But with LinkedIn, you can change your URL to be something more customized. And if you're wondering what a URL is, it's just the address, basically, the internet address that takes someone to your page on LinkedIn. So mine is www.linkedin.com/in/Paula Brand Careers. If you typed all that, you would go to my profile because that's the address. And there are some reasons to have a vanity URL. First of all, it looks cool. And if you put it on your resume or your business cards, it just looks better than and is more memorable than a random string of letters and numbers. So those are a few reasons, but the most important thing is it helps you be found in terms of the search engine on LinkedIn. If you are able to claim the URL of your name, that if someone searches for that name, you come up higher than all the other John Smiths or Paula Brands. And so those are just some of the reasons to do it. And we'll talk, I'm going to show you right now how you do it. And LinkedIn made it much more it's not difficult, but they made it more steps. So I'm going to walk you through all the different things you have to click in order to make this change. But truly, even with all the clicks, it will only take you maybe 5 minutes to do this. So when you're first on your profile, so this is my profile, this is what I call this square we see here is a snapshot. So the snapshot is always at the top of your profile, and that will never change. So the icon that I showed you early on, the pencil icon on your profile, is what you would, within the snapshot, is what you would do first. And then there's a few more steps, as you can see. So when you get the pop-up window from clicking on that first number 1 pencil icon, you will then scroll all the way to the bottom of the pop-up window where you see contact info, profile URL. That's really the keywords you keep wanting to look for are URL. If you're seeing something slightly different. So you click on that, and then you get to this next screen. And on number 3, you basically click anywhere on here, either on the URL or on this little symbol with the arrow. And then it takes you to this box, which is in the top right-hand corner of your screen. And at that point, you, again, click on the same pencil symbol, and then you'll get to step 5. And at step 5, you see what I have in the red box here. This is where you can type whatever you want it to be. So in this case, when I first did this, Paula Brand was taken, so I had to pick something else, and that might happen to you too. So instead of picking Paula Brand 4 or Paula Brand 2, you might want to think about something for yourself. Like if you're John Smith, it's going to be really hard. I'm sure John Smith is taken. You might pick John Smith ESQ for Esquire, or John Smith, or maybe you put in a middle name, or you might put John Smith Accounting. But something that will make it more obvious what you are wanting to be branded for. And you'll notice right here at the bottom of this slide here that the URL can be between 3 and 100 characters, but I would not recommend making a very long one because it'll be harder to remember. The other thing is you can't use spaces, and everything is going to show up lowercase no matter how you type it. So unfortunately, you can't put like capital P, little h, capital D, in order to, or E, capital E, little s, little q for Esquire. It's all going to show up lowercase, so you have to just know that it's going to look like that and sort of work around that. Now, the one thing I have learned over the years is even though it says no symbols, it will let you do a hyphen. So if I had known better, 8 years ago, I would have been Paula -Brand -Careers, but not that big a deal. So hopefully you can do this and come up with a URL that is memorable, but also helps brand you for what you want to be known for. That's usually the fun quick trick that everyone tries to do really fast. So if you have a moment, feel free to try to do that. I'm going to keep moving on and talk about the completing your summary. And the summary is now called about. So this is one of those cases where you might see the word summary or you might see the word about, but it's the same section, and it shows up right under the snapshot that we talked about before. So in terms of your summary, it's a lot more space. So the headline was only 120 characters. The summary is 2,000 characters. So it's huge. I mean, it's probably 4 or 5 short paragraphs that you could include. Not to say that you have to include all of it or use every character. That's not the case. You don't want to just ramble on to fill in the space, but just know that you have that amount of space if you need it. Again, first versus third person is better. And you want to think about who your audience is. So in some cases for you, it might be a potential employer. For some of you, it might be a potential student. So think about who your audience is. Like in my case, my audience are organizations or individuals that want to hire me as a consultant. So I'm not looking for a W-2 job, so I'm not going to use that same type of language in my summary. But you have to think about who your audience is and tailor it to that audience. Again, think about keywords. So even though they're sentences, and you can use bullet points in this area as well, but I will say this: you cannot create bullet points within LinkedIn. So if you want to use bullet points, you have to create it in Word, which is probably smart to do anyway, just for spell check and things like that, and then cut and paste into LinkedIn. Okay, let's move towards a sample. So this is a picture of a sample summary. And again, this is Zoe Wildcat's example, who is an English major and wants to be a writer, obviously. So she's talking about her blog. So these are some keywords that she has. Public relations is a keyword. New York really could be a keyword. Communications, media communications. I think she writes that she has a blog. So all of these could be keywords that someone might be found for writing, someone who wants to do a work that's writing, journalism, and those types of industries. So she's actually done my suggestion here about putting a specialties section. And really, when someone does this at the bottom of their profile, I have one as well, it's almost like just adding tags to your profile. It's really written for the computer and the search engine, not for the human eye necessarily, this section at the bottom. Whereas this part is really more written for the human reader. And it's okay to show a little personality on your profile. In fact, most HR managers and recruiters appreciate that, because it can get very dry when you're reading 100 summaries in a row. So if you're a funny person, you might have a funny profile. It's rare, and I think you have to be careful how you do it. Make sure that it's something funny to everyone. But basically, you can give a sense of your personality by the way you write. You can talk about what you're passionate about, and generally that's going to be a work passion, but you might also run marathons or do something else that is not too personal, but just enough insight to make you be authentic, basically, to the reader. So nothing too personal. You're not going to write about how many children you have or your marital situation, nothing like that. But you could write about the fact that you've wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer or a writer since you were 6 years old. I mean, that's personal, but it's relevant to the fact that maybe you're a writer right now or an attorney right now. So it kind of explains where you came from. Now let's jump into some of the data sections. In terms of the two default sections are experience and education. And experience, I just want to point out that it does not say paid experience. It doesn't say jobs. It just says experience. So you could put things on there that are not paid. For example, under my experience section, I have my leadership through the Maryland Career Development Association. It's not a paid position, but I put it there on purpose, and I'll tell you why. Because later when I talk about recommendations, no one can recommend you unless it's in your education or experience section. So a teacher could recommend you under education for a course you took. A former employee or colleague or boss could recommend you for a specific experience. But if I had put the Maryland Career Development volunteering experience under volunteering, which there is another section you can add called volunteering, then people wouldn't be able to recommend me. So that is some of the logic for what you might add under experience and not. And I would say that on LinkedIn, there are definitely more jobs on my LinkedIn profile than there are on my resume, because with your resume, as you get older, you're going to drop off older jobs that aren't relevant. But a LinkedIn is a much broader picture of you. So you might keep your first job out of college, which I have done on my LinkedIn resume, just so someone can see your background, where you came from. I was a VISTA volunteer, which some of you might know is like AmeriCorps. And I would love to reconnect with some of those people that I worked with as a VISTA. So I purposely have it on there in case some of those people find me that way. And LinkedIn is smart enough that if you give it more data, it might even suggest some of those people to me because the more data you give it, the smarter it gets. One other point I want to make about experience section is you don't want your resume and your LinkedIn in terms of the experience section to be exact replicas of each other. And let me explain what I mean by that. If you created an attractive profile and someone is going to be looking, you know, it's appealing to a recruiter. The recruiter contacts you, they tell you about a specific opportunity, then you would tailor the resume that you send to that recruiter for that specific job that they're representing. And when the recruiter gets the resume, you don't want them to look at it and say, oh, I already knew all this. This is exactly what's on the profile. So that's what you're trying to avoid ultimately. And some of the ways that you can do that would be, well, on your resume, you're not going to write in you'll write in first person, but you're not going to use I, me, and my. And so on LinkedIn, you can use I, me, and my. Or another idea is, for example, with the World Bank. So not everyone knows what the World Bank does. So on my LinkedIn profile, I could have an introductory sentence or two about the World Bank, how many employees they have, what type of work they do, before I even get into the content of what I do at the bank. So those are just a couple different ways. Maybe your resume is bullet points, but your LinkedIn profile is paragraph format. You can think of some ways to just vary it a little bit. And I wouldn't give away everything. So on your resume, maybe you have 6 bullet points under a job, but on your LinkedIn profile, maybe you only include the best 3, and then you just say selected accomplishments. So those are just some tricks that can help you with that. In terms of dates, just know that you can't put in a job without dates. They force you to put dates, and then they will order all of your jobs chronologically. And if you've worked at if you've worked with the same company in more than one role, it is smart enough, and now it does link them together. So it shows like a gray line with dots, so it all is clear that it's under one employer. Now with education, you do not have to add dates. It makes you feel like you do, but you really don't. So if you didn't want to pick a year, you could just put the word year and it doesn't show up. And the same actually trick works with experience, because you do have to put in at least years, but you don't have to put in months and years. So if you had a job and you had it for 3 months maybe, so you don't want to put the months, you could just pick the word month instead of July or August. You just pick the word month. Whatever the choice is at the top of all the selections from the drop-down box is usually the default to allow you to skip giving it a year or a month. And the last point I would just make about some of these other sections is that there is a certification section that you can add. So I would probably just keep the education for formal, meaning undergraduate, graduate, doctorate type work. Some people put high school, and I would say high school is probably unnecessary in most cases, but some people do it. I did it because the head of LinkedIn actually went to my high school. So I thought, you know what, maybe that might help out one day. And I know that people who went to very prestigious high schools or high schools that are really tight alumni networks, in those cases, it can be useful to list your high school. But for most of us, if you just went to your average high school in the middle of America or anywhere in the world, most people aren't going to have that level of detail on the local knowledge. So it's probably not necessary for most of us. This just shows you what this section looks like. So you can just see it lists the school, and then this is actually the old UB logo, I believe, but it will update when organizations, companies change logos. And then here's the plus sign again and the pencil sign to allow you to either add another school or edit the ones you've already done. And this is similarly what the experience section looks like, with the plus sign and the ability to edit the ones that you've already added. And this just shows you some of the other sections that can be added. I mentioned certifications, but also organizations. If you're a member of the Society for Human Resource Management, or the IEEE for engineers, or the Maryland Bar Association, or anything like that, you would want to add those under organizations. If you've written publications, you can put those there. That could be a thesis as well, but a thesis could also go under your education. Now, courses are generally I would say for less experienced professional workers, people usually in school, I have seen some people, I've seen two creative ways to use courses. I've seen people who teach courses, list them here as they teach that topic. I've also saw once someone put the course was the School of Hard Knocks or something like that. And it was obvious to me that the person did not have a college degree, but they were trying to make light of it and sort of not make light of it, but try to show that they have, you know, maybe they don't have book knowledge, but they've got street smarts kind of thing. And that was the way that came across in their profile. I think they did it in a clever way. And this is just to show you of the sections I just showed you on the last slide. This is how you would add them at the right under your background image, which is within that snapshot in the first rectangle that shows up on your profile. You'll see this add profile section. And when you click on that drop down box, these are the options that you'll see. There's actually more, but these, I was just trying to give you some screenshots of ones you would add. I would say test scores is probably a little unusual to add, but maybe if you just pass the bar, you might put that score. Or again, if you're a student, test scores are more appropriate. But if you're, it would be inappropriate for me to put test scores of a college class when I graduated in 1991. That would be kind of strange. So use your judgment. And of course, the older you get, probably the more you drop off things from your younger years. Let's move towards talking about skills, endorsements, and recommendations. And these are also important to have a well filled out profile. And I want to talk about the differences of them, because basically they are different and sometimes people get confused. So there's a skills section, of which I'll show you pictures of momentarily, but you add skills to your profile. So mine has career counseling as a skill, and then people can endorse it, meaning people can click on a plus sign that says I have that skill. Whereas recommendations are much more like a letter of recommendation that someone formally writes you, or a letter of reference. So for those, someone has to actually write words, like Paula was able to present on LinkedIn to our university and such and such. And so those are harder because it takes more thought. Someone has to write words down. So yes, they are more powerful, and recommendations are, I'd say, more valued. But at the same time, I wouldn't discount getting endorsements, and I'll talk about that a little bit more why as we go through. For here, let me just kind of make a few other quick points. Whether it's endorsing someone or recommending someone, either way, you must be a first degree connection to someone. And sometimes people ask, what does that mean? It means that first degree connection is similar to a friend on Facebook, where basically you've sent an invitation to someone and they've accepted it. So now you're first degree. And there are some bonuses, I guess, or advantages to being a first degree connection with someone. The main ones are that you can see each other's emails, or not that, I'm sorry, I can't see someone else's emails, but I can see, say, Lakeisha's email. I could write to Lakeisha through her email because I can see it because we're first degree connections. And then the other benefits are that we can recommend and endorse each other. One other thing to point out about the skills section, I know skill is a pretty specific word, although it can mean different things to different people. In this context, a skill could be an area of expertise. So international law, someone might argue that's not really a skill, but it is certainly an area of expertise. And higher education, it's sort of hard to say that's a skill, but it is an industry. So think broader than just skills. And you can think of soft skills as well as technical hard skills. I think hard skills are going to be easier to be found for. More recruiters are going to be searching for the word accounting than they are going to be for team player, as an example. But still, you can use both. And I would think for someone who's an undergraduate, maybe has less work experience, you might have to depend on more soft skills early on. And then as you get more experience, you can add more hard skills that help you be found. So this is a screenshot that shows you what it looks like when someone looks at your skills section. And so in this case, I have endorsed this person for curriculum design because it has a check mark, but if I wanted to endorse them for social media, I would click on the plus sign, and then their number would go from 3 to 4. So this person has social media skills, they have 3 endorsements, and I could add 1 more and make it 4. And going back to the reason for endorsements, I know it seems a little bit of a gamification and popularity contest at times, and I do understand that negative side of it. But the positive side and the upside of it are a couple things. And the main one is that in terms of search engine optimization, if I have, for example, this person has 10 endorsements for curriculum design. If I have 90 endorsements for curriculum design, I am going to come up higher than this person if someone searches on the words curriculum design. So that's the other reason for it in terms of search engine optimization. But even just if a human looks at this and says, sees 99 endorsements instead of 10, it's going to give the perception that this person knows what they're doing, because if 99 people, you couldn't probably pay 99 people to endorse you, not like you would anyway, but you can't have 99 friends and family. So there must be some legitimacy if it's a high number, because it would be hard to get that number unless you had that expertise. That's kind of the thought behind it. If you have lower numbers, it doesn't look as good. So I would say the main goal, would be to make sure that the top 3 are the ones that you want to be at the top, because the ones where it says Maggie is also good at below, I have to click on something that says see more in order to see those. So the default for LinkedIn will just be to show 3 skills. Even if you have 50 of them on there, it's only going to show the top 3. So you really have to make sure those top 3 are the ones you really want to be known for. And then if someone clicks on see more, they can see the rest. This shows you, let me just go back 1 slide. So when you're on your skills and endorsements section in your profile, if you look to the right, you'll see add a new skill, and you'll see this pencil again. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when you click on each of those things. So if you click add a new skill, you get to a page like this. And if you start typing in teaching, you'll see that the system will start to suggest words. And these words, if it's suggesting it, it means people have already used these words. So in this case, notice that college teaching doesn't show up. Only university teaching shows up. So I might consider myself a college teacher, and I might teach at a school that calls itself a college, but I would probably in this case pick university teaching as the keyword phrase for my profile, because if I can tell by this selection that if I put in college teaching, it will accept it, but no one's probably looking for that word, keyword phrase, because it would be here if someone had already used it at least once on their profile. So you can kind of out clever yourself. Like I could call myself a career ninja instead of a career counselor or coach, but no one's really looking for a career ninja. So don't get so fancy that you kind of outsmart yourself. And this is what it looks like if you click on the word or the edit button. So you can see some of it's self-explanatory. For example, if I click on this garbage symbol, I will throw away my career counseling skill. And with it, I will delete all of my endorsements. So that would be bad. You don't want to delete a skill by accident that has a lot of endorsements, because it will be hard. You'll have to manually basically ask all those people to redo it. So be careful to not click the garbage by accident. And this was the symbol I mentioned earlier on, where you can drag and drop these. So if I click on, I can't literally do this because this is not a live screen, but if I clicked on this symbol and I slid down and let go, oops, it moved my slide, it would move, say, career counseling to under career development. Now, there's a couple of weird things about this page. The one thing is that you can only move and rearrange skills within a section. So these top 3 are considered one section called top skills. So I can only move these 3 within each other. I cannot click on resume writing and drag it to be up into my top 3 skills. That won't work. You'll try to do it and it will just reject. It won't comply. So the way that you get something out of top skills or into top skills is you have to unclick this blue push pin. And once I unclick that blue push pin, the next white push pin that I select will move it into the top 3 and it will turn blue. So that's a little weird trick, but that's something that's necessary to know in order to manipulate that section. And here I would just ask you for a minute to think about what are some skills that you might consider adding to your profile. You're welcome to type them in the chat box. One other quick thing I'll just say while people are thinking about that, what skills they might add. When you click on the plus sign, it also does ask you a couple more things. It asks you to rate the person's skill. So it'll say something like highly skilled or moderately skilled. And then it will ask you how you know that person. I usually pick none of the above because that's usually the case. It will say something like, Lakeisha was my boss, or Lakeisha and I worked in the same team, or it'll somehow try to guess your connection, but there is a none of the above option that you can choose. So workforce development professional. So Maxine, what I would say is I would just use workforce development as your keyword phrase in this skills section. You might use workforce development professional in your headline that's describing you as a person, but this is more just a list of your skills. And workforce development, that's another one of those that's really an industry more than a skill, but it is an industry, and you want to show that you are well versed in that industry. Someone said using Facebook as a tool for career promotion. Yeah, I can't really speak to Facebook. To be honest, I don't really like Facebook, so I don't use it too much. But all of the social media sites, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, it's all about the keywords. So that's the key thing, is what are the right keywords for you to use on those sites to attract the right people for your message. Okay, we're going to keep moving on. I think only one person, only Maxine wrote in there, but do think about the skills. You can add up to 50. You do not need to add 50, just to be clear, but you should probably have your top 10 or 15 on there with the best 3 that you want to be known for literally at the top. And the system will order it for you by descending order. So if you have 50 endorsements for, say, leadership, it's going to move leadership to the top. You can then go back and move it to the bottom, but the system will naturally order them in descending order. So you do have to make sure that you have them in the right order. The best way to handle that is really just to try to get 20 people or a certain number of people to endorse you for the skills that you want to be on top, and then also have them showing as the top 3. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not seeing any questions pop in. Okay, and in terms of recommendations, you do need a strategy. I will say it probably took me 6 months before I got the first one, and now I have plenty years later, but it's a process, right? So first you have to make sure that the person is on LinkedIn. And that may sound silly, but I have a boss from one of my first bosses who's an amazing boss and great trainer, but she's now retired and she is not working and she's not on LinkedIn. So it's not realistic unless I get her to join, which she has little motivation since she's retired. She's not going to be able to recommend me. So you have to think about people who, first of all, worked with you in a certain capacity. Like supervisors are always going to be stronger recommendations than a colleague, but a colleague can suffice if needed. But they have to be on LinkedIn. They have to say something about you, so they have to have known you in a certain way. So think about these things, because when you start to fill in these blanks, like, oh, are they on LinkedIn? And, oh, do they remember me? And all these questions, it might inform your strategy. A couple more tips. The person, you have to have the job present on your LinkedIn profile in order for someone to recommend you for it. So people can't just write a general recommendation, Paula is an amazing speaker, and then just send it to me. They have to tie it to a job or an education or school. So know that, and make sure you have the right jobs in your profile that you're going to ask people to recommend you and tie to those jobs. And the truth is, you may have to help people. So you may have to draft someone a recommendation. I think we've all had to write letters of recommendations for people, draft it for someone we've asked because they're too busy. their heart's in the right place, but they just don't know what to say. So the same is true here. Now, you cannot send it to yourself in LinkedIn. So you would have to draft it for them, send it to the other person, and then you might also have to show the person how to send it to you through LinkedIn, because again, it's all through within the Turnle system. So someone has to be logged on, then they have to send it to you, and then of course you do have to accept it for it to show on your profile. It's not going to just reveal itself, just so you know, in case you're worried about that. And I think one of the best ways to receive recommendations is to start by giving them. I think that before I even ask anyone for one, I'm going to give one first, and I would recommend that to you as well. In fact, a few years ago, I wrote a recommendation for a former supervisor, and within 30 minutes, no joke, she wrote me one back. And I was not expecting that, but that can be an added bonus for you. When the person gets the recommendation that you have sent them, they are also going to get a message from LinkedIn that says, would you like to return the favor? So sometimes that prompt can be enough to have someone actually do that. So think about who you could recommend, and think about who you would like to recommend, and start making your list, and then just keep working at it. This shows you what a recommendation actually looks like on your profile. Someone said they've written lots of recommendations for people, hoping for one myself, but haven't gotten any. So, you know, roughly 1 to 5 ratio. It's hard to say for sure why there's, you know, your success ratio might be low. But I would just make sure you're asking people who know you well. I would offer to draft something for them, because again, people want to do it, but it's hard for them to execute sometimes. So that's my biggest tip, would be offering to draft it for someone. And it's good when you do that, you actually have more control over it, and you can speak to certain skills that you want to highlight. And maybe the person left to their own devices might not have thought of that. So I think drafting, even though it's sometimes can be just one more step for you, I think it actually helps you, because it helps you choose which words are going to be in it. Not that, you know, the person could still edit it, but most likely they're going to basically take your draft and just make a few changes. So that would be one tip. And the other would be to show them how to do it. So that's what's on this screen. Is at the top of your profile, you have a message if you're connected to someone. It'll say connect if you're not connected to them yet. But then there's a more with 3 dots. And when you click on the more, you see request a recommendation and recommend. So that's actually how someone would send you a recommendation. They would look you up, go to your profile, click on more, and then click recommend. And then it would walk them through saying how they know you and add the words and things like that. I would not recommend asking for a recommendation through LinkedIn this way, because it will basically just send a generic recommendation request, like Paula Brand is recommending you request or is requesting a recommendation from you. And it's just not personal enough, especially for something that is going to take energy. So my other recommendation, not sure how you ask those folks in the past, but you might just pick up the phone and call them, or send them a direct email to their private, you know, direct email address. So those would be some of the ways that I would suggest asking rather than sending it generically through the system. So hopefully those tips are somewhat helpful to you, CT. Now we're going to move into branding with images, and there's lots of ways to do this. So we're going to talk about some of the most obvious ways and give you some examples. In terms of your profile picture, it is really important to have a picture. So I know a lot of people say, is it really important? Yes, it is. If you don't have a picture, there's just a silhouette, and it's very hard to connect with a silhouette that's just a gray shadow of someone. So it is important to have it. You do not have to have a professional take it. You could, but I don't think you have to pay a professional, but it has to be better than a selfie. It can't just be you taking a picture of yourself, because it's pretty obvious when that's done. It also shouldn't be you editing and cropping out someone who's right next to you and I still see their hand on your shoulder. So, and in terms of branding, you shouldn't be holding a dog or you know, anything, a cat, unless you're a veterinarian, that would be very on brand for a vet, but not for me or most of us. So make sure that it's on brand. If you're an attorney, you could be standing behind a bookshelf of law books. So that would be an easy way. If you're an architect, you could be standing in front of a building that you designed, or you could have a blueprint behind you. So think about things like that. But at the very least, look approachable, smile, look at the camera, and look like someone that someone else would want to get to know. Now the background image, that's the large rectangle size behind your circular photo of just your face. And I'll show you some images there because those can also be branded. And then finally, you can add media. Now they just recently, maybe in the past 6 months or less, have started to call this featured, like a featured section. But the concept is still the same. It's just that now with the featured section, which I do see that on my profile, but I know it's not rolled out to everyone. They're much bigger. So whether they call it featured section or media section, either way, you can add pictures, you can add videos, you could link to an article where you were quoted, you can add a brochure that you created, you can add documents, you can add PowerPoints. All of these things are addable. And with the new featured section, you can actually pull in, I think I did this, I think I did it maybe for this presentation. I posted an update, like, so looking forward to speaking at University of Baltimore, and then I was able to pull it into the featured section. So it's more visible on your profile, because normally everything you post is not automatically visible on your profile. So those are some ways that you can add media, and I'm going to show you some examples here because I think it's much easier if you see pictures. So in these two cases, you see that the circular picture is the person's actual profile picture, and then the background image is what's the big rectangle. So William Arruda is basically the personal branding pioneer, as he states here, worldwide, I would say. So he probably just created this image in Canva or had someone design it. Whereas behind Anna Frick's picture, you see this is actually the World Bank. And she's a recruiter for the World Bank, so that makes a lot of sense. I would say for most of you, you don't necessarily want a picture of your employer as your background image, or your employer's building or your employer's logo, because really you want to be branding yourself. LinkedIn should be branding you, not any one company. Now, in this case, again, it works for Anna because she's a recruiter for the bank. So it makes perfect sense. But when she leaves the bank one day, obviously she will have to change that picture. And here's a couple more examples. So this is actually my sister Lisa here, who is an attorney, but she has the generic background. So this is what everyone is going to see if you don't change the image. And I do give you the pixel size that is optimal for this shape. I will tell you that a panoramic picture on an iPhone is actually a perfect shape for this size. And if you see the picture below, so this is another profile of another attorney, but you can't see it. I've cut off her headline on purpose because I just wanted to show you how the power of this picture with a law book being open is, you don't even need words and you pretty much already get the impression that she's an attorney. Whereas my sister has the words, but without a powerful picture, you might miss the fact that you might glaze over that she's an attorney. It's possible. So those are some ideas about how to add the images to your background image. And then this is what I was talking about earlier. So this is the old version where it said media, and this is a PowerPoint. This is a blog post, a link to a blog post, and so is this. So these are what they used to look like. Now the featured section is much bigger. You can see it's double the size, and now you can, when you add the plus sign, you can actually pull in something like this one here, the 7 ways to bolster your career. That was actually just a post. It's not necessarily linking to a document or a PowerPoint or anything like that. It's just the post about that event, and I was able to pull it in. So you can see how it could be helpful within a university. You could use this in a good way to promote events that you're having. But even if it's not event management that you're in, you could still add documents that you've created, brochures that you've created, again, videos you've created, or videos, maybe you've been interviewed. So all of those can promote your brand. And you can put this, the featured section only shows up under your snapshot, but you can add media to a job or an education. So you could add it to, you could add your, let's say you created a white paper for one of your college courses, you could add that. And this is how you would do that. To add media to a job or a school, when you're within that entry, you go to the very bottom and you see upload and link to media. So this is how you would do it if you were tying it to a specific job or a specific educational experience. And then the last thing I want to point out are just symbols, because they can be really effective, and they're just a little touch, but they can make a world of difference. I used to have stars in between my words, and then I saw this globe on someone else's profile, and I thought, well, that would be really perfect because I'm a global career coach. And I actually wrote the person and said, is this a copyrighted logo or a copyrighted image? And he said, no, it's just a generic symbol. Anyone can use it. So he said, just cut and paste it from my profile. And that's what I did. You could do that with mine. Here's another example with the star and the check marks. And then these are 4 different posts where you could go to them. They're links, actually. These are URLs, and if you cut and paste them and put them in a search engine, it will take you to an article that the 4 different authors wrote, and the article is all about symbols. So they each just have a bunch of symbols that you could cut and paste within these articles. So you might want to try that. This I want to share because it is I think the best example I've seen from someone I know of a well-branded profile on LinkedIn. And then this is an electronic signature. So she's kind of tied it all together. So she's in logistics, which a lot of people call supply chain. So she's tied it into this pretty picture that has a chain. She's using the symbol right here in between some of the words. And then in her electronic signature, she's also has the link here. So I think it's great to see how it's aligned through different types of communications for her. And I think that with that, I will ask if we have any questions, and maybe put my video back on, open up the Q&A for people. I see a number there, so I can see some people have some questions. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about LinkedIn, anything that I went over. And I would like to ask you, what is one thing that you will do in the next week to brand your profile? We went over a lot of different ideas in this hour or so, and I'd like you to think about one thing that you can implement right now. Okay, so I see someone asked, what do I think about investing in the premium? So I would say this. I don't think you need to invest in the premium, at least right away. I would say max out the free version, because most people think that by just getting the paid version, that suddenly all these magical things are going to happen. And the truth is, you still have to do the work. You still have to send people invitations. You still have to look up companies. So, I mean, there are some benefits to the paid version. And I'd say the biggest benefit to any of the paid versions are that you get in-mails. And an in-mail is a special type of message, because in-mails allow you to write to someone that you're not connected to on LinkedIn. So I could write to Richard Branson if I had an in-mail, or the president of some company that I'm trying to get, where I'm trying to get a job. So that is one of the biggest advantages of those paid accounts. But most people don't use the in-mails. So my suggestion to you, if that's really what you're looking for is in-mails, keep a list of people that you aren't able to write to now, but you would be able to if you had in-mail. And then what I sometimes suggest is just doing it for a month, because they'll always give you a free upgrade for a month. But the trick is you have to give them a credit card, and then you have to remember to cancel it. So to me, that's not really quite free, even though technically it is. So what I would say is, if you have a list of, say, 5 people that you need to send in-mails to, then wait till you hit 5, then join for a month, send those emails, and then see if you get your money's worth and see if it's valuable enough to you to keep, and then if not, cancel it. That would be my advice about the paid version versus the unpaid version. I'm just going to scan these because I'm able to see the chat now, but feel free, Alyssa or Lakeisha, to jump in if you see something I'm missing. So Tia said she's going to change her brand name and headline. So that's good. You feel free to share what it's going to be if you have ideas. Tia also asked, does UB offer one of the sessions to support? So Lakeisha, I think that's, I think that might be a question more for you.
Sure. Sure, no problem, Paula. And thank you so much for this rich information. I have a few items I need to take on to tweak my profile. Tia, absolutely. If you are a student in public affairs, business, or arts and sciences, you would make an appointment with your assigned career specialist with the Career and Internship Center. If you are with the law school, you would make an appointment with the law school career development center. For the Career and Internship Center, you would do that in UB Works. And one of the options to schedule an appointment would be LinkedIn or professional branding, either one. And you can let the coach know what you would like to discuss. We normally have a photo shoot as well this time of the year. We are going to try to be creative and see if we can do that virtually. If not, it will return in the
Paula, I think someone raised their hand, and just want to say, anyone who's raised their hand, if you could please put your question in the Q&A, that would be great.
Sure, yeah, I definitely can't see hand raising. Tia asked, what about alumni? So Lakeisha, are alumni eligible for that as well, or no?
So I can say for the law school, any alumni are welcome to contact the Law Career Development Office. You can reach us at lawcareer@ubalt.edu.
Thanks, Alyssa. And this is Lakeisha. If you are a student or alum in CAS, CPA, and MSB, yes, you can schedule an appointment with a career specialist as well by logging into UB Works. If you do not know how to get into UB Works, simply email us at careercenter@ubalt.edu.
And Paula, I have a question. How
Sure.
about in terms of one's own activity on the site, in terms of liking things and posting? Do you have any recommendations about how often someone should engage in the site so that their activity might bring more attention to their site?
Sure, I think that's a good question because LinkedIn definitely rewards activity. So if you open an account and don't do anything for it for a year and you have 2 connections and no picture, things like that, LinkedIn will definitely, you're kind of not on LinkedIn's radar. So it is good to make a regular schedule. I don't think you have to be doing something every day. I mean, I think that's probably not realistic in today's world, but once a week. Caitlin Maddoxon is a career counselor who she posts a lot because every time I open my homepage, it always seems like there's a message or an update from her. So I think if you are consistent and have a pattern, it's kind of like Google notices how often you blog. I think LinkedIn system, I can't guarantee this because they'll never reveal their algorithms, but it seems pretty obvious to me that it rewards activity, whether that's connecting with more people or posting, whether it's a quick post like, hey, I'm at this conference, or a long, essentially a LinkedIn blog post. Any of those things should help you come up higher in searches. And of course, the more people you're connected to, the higher you'll come up in searches, because if you are, when someone like a recruiter searches for, say, the word career counseling, the people who are connected somehow to that recruiter, either as first, second, or third degree, will come up higher than people that have no connection to that recruiter. So what that means is if you have 1,000 first degree connections, you have way more second degree connections, because everyone who's connected, all of the people, all of your 1,000 first degree connections, you are now second degree to all of their connections. And so 1,000 first degree connections could be 15,000 second degree connections. And so when you go to a job posting and it will show you, if you're looking at a job posting on LinkedIn and it shows me that this person is this person is posting a job at a company, it will show me that I know Lakeisha and Lakeisha knows that person. And that's what a second degree connection would be. So then I could call Lakeisha and say, hey, Lakeisha, can you connect me to Susan? She works at this company that I'm trying to target. And so that's where the second degree can become really powerful. So anyway, activity is rewarded. And I think the most important thing is developing a good quality network on LinkedIn as part of that activity.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'm looking at the, actually in the question, someone said, how would you recommend for making connections? I think there's 3 main ways to do it. The easiest way would be to click on the word network on the main menu, black bar on the top, and you'll see all the people who've sent you invitations. And a lot of times people know those people, they just weren't sure what to do with it. So that would be one really easy way, is to just accept the people you already know. And then if you scroll below that, LinkedIn will start suggesting people. So it's smart enough to know to suggest people who have the same company name, who went to the same school. And so that's pretty easy, just basically responding and reacting to who LinkedIn is suggesting. But you could also be more proactive. There's an alumni feature that is really amazing. If you go, for example, if I go to University of Baltimore's page on LinkedIn, there's a little word called alumni, and it shows up only for me. Well, it would show up for everyone on this webinar, but it wouldn't show up for someone who went to another school. And so if you go to the school page on LinkedIn for the school you went to, you'll see a little word that says alumni on the left. And if you click on that, it shows you a searchable, it basically shows you all the people who went to UB. So it's a huge amount. I've looked it up, tens of thousands. And then you can search among those UB alumni. I can put in the word career. I can put in the word Baltimore. I can put in the word KPMG, and it will filter all of the alumni that are on LinkedIn and show me where they work, where they live, what skills they have in their profile, and so on. So that's another way, like proactively, would be going to the alumni page and trying to find people who work where I would like to work or are doing the type of work I want to do. The third would be just typing in someone's name in the search bar and looking for people that I know and see if they're on there. The fourth way would be to use advanced search filters. So instead of just putting in, say, Paula Brand, I could put in Paula Brand, and I could put in a city, and I could put in the word healthcare or legal or something like that. So those are 4 ways that you could try to increase your connections.
So Paula, we have one last question, I think.
Sure.
You might see it's the last one. I might have missed this part, but where do we list school-held unpaid positions? For example, a position held with a school organization.
Okay, thank you. So you can put unpaid positions in multiple places. The one place you can put it would be under experience, because that you can put paid or unpaid work there. There's also a volunteer section, and that's not really a default section, so it doesn't pop up just readily. But if you go to add a profile section right in the snapshot at the very top of your page, it will list volunteer. It will show you that. Those would probably be the 2 main. Now, since it's through a school organization, there is a section under, say, University of Baltimore or any college where you can put, there's an activities field, and you could put in there, like Sigma Chi or whatever organization. So basically there's 3 places. You could put it under experience, and I would recommend putting it there if you want to have someone write a recommendation for you. You could also put it under the school, or you could put it under volunteering. I mean, a lot of things with LinkedIn, there's not only one way to do it. So you have to think about what's the best way that's going to market you the best.
Okay. I think that might be it. So Paula,
Great.
I want to thank you for that fantastic presentation. It was
Thank
a lot
you.
of information, and really appreciated you taking us through the platform. And hope
You're very
folks,
welcome.
yeah, enjoyed it. We will be, this presentation was recorded, and the link will be available if you'd like to see it again. Between our offices, we'll have that available. And thank you everyone for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everyone who attended and engaged, and good luck with your profile. I hope that you brand it well, and feel free to send me an invitation, but please just put I was in your webinar today. Otherwise I didn't see all the names, so I might not know.